What's going on, guys, and welcome yourselves to another Reddit video here on the Life Stories channel. My name is of course Dylan, and today we're going to be looking at some stories from the subreddit Tales from the Customer. So sit back, relax and enjoy the show. I had to go full Karen to be taken seriously. I'm having the worst run of luck with customer service lately. I'm starting to think there must be something wrong with me. Tonight, significant other and I decide we want to be bums and order delivery through an app. I have never used this app before, so I thought I'd just give it a go since it expanded to my city. I see a popular Mexican fast food restaurant has a coupon for free delivery. Significant other said it sounded good, so I placed the order, and once it's been received and initiated, I get a 30 to 40 minute delivery window. Seems pretty reasonable considering the restaurant is about 3 miles away. I got a text 30 minutes after ordering that says my order had been picked up and is en route. About 20 minutes go by with no delivery, and I check the tracker on my app. It shows the driver has gone in the opposite direction of my apartment by several miles. I keep checking every few minutes and notice the driver keeps making stops, 3 or 4 in total on the other end of town. Finally, almost 45 minutes after I received the first text, I receive another saying the driver has arrived. I put my apartment number on the order, so I was waiting for it to be delivered. I live on the first floor, so it shouldn't take long. After a couple of minutes, my significant other puts on his shoes and says he'll go and get it. As he's leaving, I check the tracker and the driver's pulling off. I get a second text later confirming my delivery. I had to send a quick text saying he was on his way, so hopefully they'd stop. Significant other returns with the food, and of course it's cold. As anyone who has eaten from this brand knows, the food is good whilst hot, but quickly the quality deteriorates. I also notice an item is missing, and a part of my order, which I ordered 4 pieces, only had 3. I know this restaurant has pre-packaged 4 pieces, so I'm thinking the driver had a little treat. I take some time to cool off and then call the 800 number to lodge my complaint and request a refund. The hold music ends and I hear a muffled voices speaking in what seems to be Spanish, then it sounds like someone is bumping the receiver. The sound cuts out for a few seconds, then repeats before someone starts speaking. The guy sounds either drunk or stoned, slurring everything he says. I very calmly say that I had the worst experience and want to lodge a complaint and request a refund. The CSA says, "What makes you think you should get a refund?" I kind of snap and start listing everything that went wrong. The CSA even asks me if I think the driver ate my food, and I said yes. The CSA then slurred an apology and offers me a $1 refund, the cost of the missing item. I tell him I want a full refund based on my total experience, and he says $1 is all I'll get. I refuse and demand a supervisor. It sounds kind of like repressed laughter on the other end, then I'm put on hold. Shortly after, a supervisor comes on the line. She asks if I was missing items, and after I said yes, she offers me a $2 refund, one for the whole missing item and one for the partially missing item. I refuse, saying that based on my entire experience, I want a full refund. The supervisor asked what else went wrong, and I ran through everything again. The supervisor asked if I told all of this to the customer service advisor, and I told her I did, and he even confirmed a couple of points. The supervisor decides to give me a full refund, and I thank her and apologise for being so snappy, but tell her that the customer service assistant I spoke with was no help and very unprofessional, and then I mention what happened at the beginning of my call. She apologises and says my call will be reviewed by the direct supervisor and offers me a credit on top of the refund. I thank her again for being professional and helpful and apologise once more for my rudeness. I've worked in guest service almost my whole adult life, so I've been on the other side, and I hated my tone when I demanded the manager, but it sounded like I was being laughed at and blown off. Well, to be honest, it sounds like the delivery driver was making other deliveries, possibly with other apps as well at the same time. It's a bit of a weird one though, because if they give you a time, they should probably stick to it because you're expecting food for that time and that's what you're paying for. The tip is not adequate? Sure, let me correct it for you. Some short backstory here. I am French and I've been living in the US for a few months already at the time of this story. I was pretty much aware of the tipping policy in restaurants and I would always tip at least 15% no matter how horrible the service was. So that day, I was going with 20 or so colleagues to an open bar event for my company in order to celebrate the visit of a colleague to our US office. This having been planned at the last minute and the ordinary place already being booked, we chose to book instead at a restaurant that I did not know but had somewhat decent reviews on Google and seemed very nice from the outside. The least I can say is that the service was subpar. The wait times were extremely long. The room we were placed in was isolated from the main area, so we basically had to go to the other area to call a waiter when we needed something. The drinks were on the cheap side with extremely stingy servings on the cheapest alcohol you can imagine, and one server in particular was very lazy and rude. I'll skip the details, but it was not the best experience and we chose never to come to this restaurant again. Comes the check for a little over $1,000. I will be the one paying with my personal card and filling in the paperwork the next day to be refunded by my company. Given the experience, the tip was set to the customary 15%, which I find generous in this specific case. I put the numbers and signed the slip, all done. Or so I hoped. As we prepare to leave, the rude waiter approaches me and starts to school me on how 15% is disrespectful and how strangers like me should learn how to behave in the country, adding with a disrespectful tone that the French were as cheapskate as she thought. Needless to say that everyone could hear her ranting and was a bit speechless. What I never thought to be possible happened. She outright asked me to update the tip to a more adequate level of tipping for the service provided. Very well, I will definitely comply with that request. I politely apologise and ask for the receipt to correct it, which I do, changing my 15% to 0%. I take a picture of the receipt for my company paperwork, and I then give her back the paper, apologising that my initial tip was obviously not adequate for the service provided. She was on the verge of exploding at this point. We did leave, although she still loudly was ranting at this point and I did not pay attention, and we did leave. End of story. Or so I thought. A few days later on a Saturday, I noticed on my credit card account online that I was charged a 25% tip on top of the check, which was initially just exceptionally bad experience, changed to an outright fraud. First things first, I immediately go to my bank in person to dispute the charge as unauthorised and provide the banker with the picture of the receipt with the 0% tip. He does write some of this story on the computer. On Monday, I go first thing to the restaurant and talk to the manager. This went uneventful with the manager siding with her waiter, but nonetheless telling me that he will look into the issue and call me back later. I insisted, but he was extremely rude also, and he did not want to move a finger or believe me, and kept saying that they are not in the business of credit card fraud, and adding that I should have come to them before filing a chargeback. I left eventually. 1 week later, I do receive a call from my banker informing me that the restaurant has agreed to the chargeback and that the whole transaction has been reversed. I did expect only the tip to be refunded, resulting in the credit on my account being permanent. The next day, I do receive a call from the restaurant owner directly, who was particularly apologetic. It seems that this waiter was new, but that similar incidents had occurred since she had been hired. He kindly asked me if I could come back to the restaurant to formally apologise, which I agreed to do that next day. On that day when I arrived, the manager did inform me that they did fire on the spot the waitress once the fraud was proven. He also did call the manager who received me the first day and asked him to apologise as well, which he reluctantly did. Notes: I did in the end never file the refund form for my company. See, I know we addressed tipping in the last video, but it's weird because in some countries standard tip is 0%. I think in Japan tipping is also considered an insult. It's just interesting the way different cultures approach tipping. Internet provider keeps overcharging us. Now have access to unlimited Wi-Fi without having to pay a cent. This all started around 6 months ago when we changed our internet plan to cut costs, going from $90 a month to $60 Australian dollars. The bill came in for the month at $150, which was the cost of 2 months piled together. I assumed this was a mistake and called them up to take care of it, and they did. Turns out it was just a little mistake in the system, so no problem, right? Wrong. The next month the bill came in at $150 again, which was confusing because we thought they'd already fixed the issue of the previous month. So again I rung them up and got them to take care of it. I should also note that each time we called it would take about 50 minutes for the call to actually go through. The next month the bill comes in and, you guessed it, $150. I was furious and I called them and cancelled the internet plan on the spot. Now that wasn't the only issue we had with the company, as there had been numerous instances where they tried to rip us off before. One example of this being the first time when we called the company, forgot the reason why, through a number we found on Google. As stated before, the wait was about 50 minutes before a person got through to us. When the bill came in for that month, we learnt they'd actually charged us $2 for every minute we were calling, including the time we were put on hold, totaling about $100. I don't know who's in the right here because we did use their paid number, but I just think it's ridiculous that we have to pay for the time they kept us waiting. Here's the twist. After we cancelled the internet plan, our Wi-Fi continued to work normally. We haven't been sent a bill since then, in fact we haven't heard anything from the company. I originally planned to switch providers right after, but at the moment the Wi-Fi's functions work perfectly and I haven't had any issues. Well, if I was this customer I'd be really worried, because if the company are prepared to charge $2 for every minute that the customer was kept on hold, imagine what they'll do when they find out that the customer has been getting free internet access for them for the last couple of months, it could even be years. I'd just keep an eye out for any crazy charges that hit the credit card. Asked for a wheelchair accessible room in a hotel, got a room on the 4th floor with no elevator. A few years back we were planning to go to Brussels for a tattoo convention with 2 of my friends. However, a few months before, one of my friends got his foot broken, shattered really in lots of pieces and bones. Being in charge of the reservation, I emailed the hotel to ask if it was possible to get a room accessible to a wheelchair, and they said yes. So off we go, a 5-hour drive with a wheelchair in the trunk. When we got there, the only way in was via a huge, and I mean huge, step. Fine, let's carry the wheelchair. Check-in goes by, I get handed a key for the 4th floor. I'm skeptical at this point, but I thought, hey, if the elevator goes to the room, fine. The elevator. It was just big enough to fit 2 people standing up. The wheelchair wouldn't fit, so my friend stood up, which he could do but wasn't allowed to, and I grabbed the wheelchair, folded it, and took the next one. And then in front of me, a huge flight of stairs. There's no way around it, and my friend on top of it struggling to stand up and in a lot of pain. By this time I'm tired because I had to drive for 5 hours and also got a tattoo, didn't sleep the night before, you get it. I had to try not to go full Karen on them. My friend's clearly trying not to cause a scene, but I decided to go to the front desk because, you know, I did ask a few months before if we could have a room, emailed them a few days prior just to make sure everything was in order, and they still decided that the 4th floor and 15 steps would be okay. So I explained the situation to the front desk, and they said they couldn't really put us in one of the bottom rooms because it was already occupied. I'm really not one for getting angry, especially since the guy I spoke to by mail clearly wasn't the girl I had in front of me. So I showed her the emails, and I mean my friend was in a wheelchair. By then she did everything she could do to find us a room. Offered us a beer, but the room was still on the 2nd floor, so we had to take the tiny elevator, and with 4 steps still going down. It was better and we were exhausted, so we got in and napped the hell out of our frustration. To this day I'm still angry though. My friend was lucky enough to be able to stand up, but what if he wasn't? And what do they do with wheelchair users who can't get out of their wheelchair? Well, this story should probably be living in Tales from the Front Desk, but it's a real shame. You should be able to trust a hotel when you turn up to provide you the services that you've paid for and that they've promised. It's not like the customer didn't email a couple of days before to confirm that everything was okay. It just seems a bit lax from this Belgian hotel. Well guys, that's it for today's video. I hope you all did enjoy. If you did, leave a like rating down below, leave a comment, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.